Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Server's Table podcast, where we discuss all things meditation, the practice of meditation. Where we try to catch a good vibe. My name is Lloyd. I'm here today with my co-host Trung. Say hello to the people, Trung.
Hey, what's going on? How is everyone? Glad
All
y'all
right.
can come and listen to some real talk, I guess, at what happens when you serve.
That's right. That's right. So we are both meditators, and this podcast is basically about what the practice is about, what it's meant to us. Welcome to episode 1. Yeah, Trung, man, why don't you kick it off for the people? Let them know what is the purpose of this podcast. Why are we here? Why are we coming into their feed every week?
Yeah, our intention is definitely to give people a different perspective, or a perspective in general, of what we think is like to serve at a center, and how it also helps our practice. Because most of the time we're not sitting on a cushion; we're actually doing mundane things like cooking, or having discussions with other people, working with people. So those are the times when I get the most time to practice, which is serving. Like when I'm serving, I practice a lot nonstop, even though I'm not sitting on a cushion and feeling like it's going to give me a different way of gaining wisdom, let's say. But yeah. How about you, Lloyd? Like how would you say this?
No, I like what you were saying there. It's kind of about how we're living the practice, right? Like, it's one thing to be sitting down, meditating, and and even then that is practice for the day-to-day life. I agree with what you were saying there. And I think like just bringing the other people together who have questions about meditation, and people that, that already are in the practice with us, our brothers and sisters who also meditate, getting more discussion around that, I think is a good thing as well.
Yeah, I think it's just part of showing up for the practice. Like, yeah.
So okay, we're kind of talking about this practice, right? Like let's break it down for our audience. Like, what is this practice? Like, what should they know about meditation?
Wow, what should they know about meditation? I mean, it can mean so many different things for people, right? Like, I used to think of meditation as like when I go in this flow state, or this zone, like, like even if I'd work a job and like time would fly by and I'd feel like I'm in this zone. And for me, that was like a meditative state, let's say, right? But it can mean many different things for people, and I don't think there's necessarily right or wrong to anything. It's just your perception at that time, or what you have experienced about meditation. And nowadays, for me, meditating is just actually living instead of existing. I mean, it's hard to say, but that's the gist of it. And we can go into it more eventually. But yeah, what's your feedback on that? Or what's meditation to you, Lloyd? Like,
It's a lot of different things.
yeah.
But I definitely say that probably know thyself is one of the big things for me in meditation, is being just aware of how I'm feeling, or how I'm, what I'm going through the day. That feels like something that's really important, or that I've gained from practicing, is, instead of just reacting, right, I'm able to observe and then and decide how I'm going to react, right? It's not just like coming up, and that comes from sitting down on the cushion and really taking in, observing, right? Observation and know thyself. That's what I got from it.
Sounds like just being your authentic self, pretty much, in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of authenticity to it, right? Like I don't know, man, and you can chime. You might have a little more to say on this too, but like an element of authenticity where it's like knowing. I don't know how to explain that. Where like when you know yourself, how can you be anything else but authentic? Like when you keep it real, don't you first have to keep it real to yourself, kind of? thing, you know?
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's the practice of just being real, like your authentic self,
Mhm.
and knowing when you are being authentic, when you're controlled, let's say, by the conditioned habits or whatnot, the mind that already wants to do it a certain way or knows how to do it a certain way. So
Right.
yeah, there is this, yeah.
Can you give an example, like a specific example of how that would play out?
Like, man, there's a few examples. See, I'm gonna try to use the road rage example because I feel like we all have been to, maybe if we all drive, then we would know. But before or even still sometimes now, it's like if someone cuts me off for no reason, I might feel offended in some way just because someone didn't pay the respects or was considerate enough to use the blinker or do it mindfully, let's say.
Personal.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it becomes only a personal thing, even though we're just driving on this road together. Just like someone stepped on my toe pretty much. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? So as I'm being, let's say, mindful, I would maybe not use my mind to rationalize it out to feel better, even. Like that was actually one of my main defense. I mean, still is one of my main defense mechanism is to rationalize things out to feel better and not to be in the moment, actually. Like I'm taking myself out of this moment of feeling upset or annoyed or whatever you want to call it, angry, and I'm instead saying, oh, maybe they're having a bad day, or maybe they didn't see me. Oh, I'm still alive. It doesn't matter. Like we can make up all the
Mhm.
reasons to feel better, to change that moment, to cope with it in the sense, like, you know, but that doesn't mean it's resolved anything. I'm not being authentic. I wasn't
Mhm.
there and was like, oh, why am I feeling this sensation, these feelings, right? Like, oh, why is this overwhelming me suddenly? Just because someone cut in front of me. And because I don't take that time to process this feeling, it's obviously something else. It's not this person cutting me off. It's probably some who knows what layers and layers of, you know, suppressing maybe this feeling.
Right.
So being authentic in that moment, just I'm able to just, I don't want to say let it go, but it's just I'm not affected by it in the same way because I'm just seeing it more. I'm seeing it as how it is. Oh, it's just this thing. It's coming up because I don't know why, and it doesn't really matter. I just see it right now. It's coming up, this feeling, and I'm able to process it. And that is part of, for me at least, what mindfulness brings to the table for me. And then I'm actually living the moment, not just saying, oh, no, I don't like this. I'm going to think of something else and how to deal with this feeling. Or now I'm going to, yeah, it's just distractions of the actual present moment.
Would you say that there's an element of like detachment from the anger or from those negative feelings? Like you're not like, are you still upset or are you just like is there an element of detachment? Like how does that actually differ from the normal uh
The only difference would be not reacting. Like,
okay.
I mean, that moment I'm still hurting myself. I still feel the pain, right? Like, I mean, it feels like I'm hurting myself, right? Because of this anger or whatever. I don't want this feeling. But once you really embrace it and know that it's just this feeling that happens because who knows what, it's just happening. And because it could happen by anything, like again, someone could bump into me at the gym, or it could be anything really. Someone could not say open the door for me and just close it after them. Anything could happen to me where I could feel this, let's say, inconsideration or whatever you want to call it, and it could bring up this emotion. But why? And of course, we can explain it in many different levels of psychology, et cetera, et cetera. But in the end, to me at least, that's just like it's like a rabbit hole. Like it's gonna keep going. There's always something else. I mean, I'm not even sure what it is, right? Like I can make up all kinds of reasons from my
But in the
childhood, from yeah, who knows?
but in the moment you're able to look at that feeling and say like this is my anger, right? Or
Yeah,
this is how I'm feeling, and
pretty close to it.
almost
Yeah,
like yeah, and then almost like to take a step back and say like this is how I'm
yeah,
feeling. I'm not going to like run this person off the road or or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
else, right? Okay.
And the reality is, it's okay to feel that. That's the other thing that
Mm,
I think I'm coming to terms with. It's just the present moment's giving me this. And this is where I think meditation is very helpful for me in the practice, because guess what? When I sit and meditate, suddenly I can feel frustrated. I can feel annoyed. I can feel angry even. And guess what?
mm,
Nothing happened. I'm just sitting here on a cushion and this thing is coming. And that's where I kind of get this other perspective of like, this could be anything. It doesn't, I don't really know what it is. And it humbles me, and it definitely allows me this space to see it more clearly and not react. That's
right.
really the practice for me, is slowing down this reaction to the point where you're able to be in the present more. That's
No, that's great. I like what you said about sitting on the cushion and still being able to be frustrated or still feeling positive and negative emotions while you're sitting. 'Cause
yeah.
I think people mistake stillness, like you like getting the meditation and you're trying to attain the stillness or empty mind or whatever. I think people mistake that for not saying that there are no feelings. I think it's just being able to still remain centered and while these things occur, right? And being able to observe
Totally,
them and let them
totally. Yeah,
go, observe them and let them go, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, meditation definitely isn't like a feel good thing that you're supposed to accomplish, in my practice at least, because
Right.
you really meditate, you never know what you're gonna get. It's like one
Lots
day
of
could
chocolates,
be,
huh?
wow, so easy, and the next day it's like, oh, 5 minutes, I can't, I gotta go, like I gotta do something, like you can feel all the ranges of things happening, and who knows when, which sit. And that's why it's like life. It's sitting there, it's like living life, but very deeply. And for me,
Right.
it's definitely a practice of self-compassion and being gentle with myself. And I hear a lot of other people have said this too, like, you know I mean, we're our worst critics. So to learn to be gentle with oneself, I think is huge, at least in my book.
Yeah. No, I like that. Because yeah, there is an element of like striving, right? You'd be sitting on the cushion and you're like, I'm gonna sit still and I'm gonna get it right and I'm gonna be the deepest meditator there ever was. And that's a little bit harsh because the minute you don't accomplish that, you're actually falling off in you could fall off in your practice. You're generating this this feeling of, oh man, I didn't sit the full hour, or I didn't whatever. So I think you touched on something there where you said being gentle with oneself and forgiving oneself in moment to moment. I think that's very poignant, very on point.
It's
Yeah.
definitely part of the practice. Self-love. I mean, yeah, as a server, at the service table, as when you work in the kitchen, you make mistakes. You may never have worked in the kitchen before, which also happened to me. Like, you don't know how to cut a vegetable. Like, it humbles you. Like, and then every day you're learning something new. So someone's always maybe maybe you're asking for help, or maybe someone's telling you. Like, it's really just part of really, yeah, seeing what's happening to you when all these things happen, right? Like,
Mm,
and when you react a certain way, why does it matter? Like, oh, that person's telling me how to do it in another way. Why does it matter if I feel like I'm not that smart, or I feel less or something, right? Like, they're just trying, I mean, without rationalizing, as in like, oh, they're trying to help me, just be in that moment, be like, oh, let's try it this way. Like, that's fine, like meditation, like, oh, maybe I'm not sitting in the same spot I usually sit in, but it doesn't matter. Maybe it's a different cushion, but maybe to just see what happens.
right,
So
right. So
we want
so
to
you
this
so
way.
So you mentioned the kitchen and serving. So we're both Vipassana meditators. Kind of means mindfulness, and we both met through the practice. So for our audience, can we give them a little bit of a rundown of what this practice is, how we got started? Um, yeah, and like how did you get started, and what is this thing that we do?
Yeah, so I just happened to find it while I was browsing the internet. but
Okay.
I was working on myself, like I just had understood that I wasn't vulnerable before. And then after that, I started looking into the breath and how important it is, because how it affects our vagus nerve. And also I did a lot of work on my sleep, like quality of sleep. So of course the breath is also in there. And you may have heard of yoga nidra, which is like intentionally resting your body, like physically, with a guided meditation. So somehow I was looking to do a retreat, and I mean, of course, the Gwenkaji retreats are free, so it was really enticing for me. And really, not just that it's free, but also that this wholesomeness of, oh, we actually don't ask for your money unless you want to give, offer some of your money after the course. And
Right.
I don't know, it was kind of
After the
weird.
course.
It was weird at first, right? Like you're like, oh, what's going on? But then when you see that they have so many different centers, it's very organized, and to me it seems really proper. And the closest one to me was the one in Georgia. So I was like, you know what? Why not? What like, I don't want to spend, a couple $1,000s to do a retreat. Maybe I could try this one first and then donate whatever I'm comfortable with. So I signed up for the next one I could go, and yeah, that was it for me. How about you, Lloyd? Like, yeah, I don't think actually know how you found Vipassana.
Oh man, that's a that's a crazy story. Um, but yeah, so Vipassana like is an international organization, right? And it's kind of like we I don't want to even say that it's like it's definitely not something that I've always struggled with organized religion and anything that's like you've got to do it this way and all this stuff. And I felt like one, like you said, the fact that it was very non like they're not trying to get your money, right? At the end, it's like, hey man, if you feel like you gain benefit and you want to pay it forward, then give us what you can, right? And then they pay it forward. And then the fact that they don't even take people's money unless they have taken the practice. Like you can't even give unless you have sat. Like I think I thought that was really amazing too. They will not take your money to not so that the practice doesn't get influenced by outside money. I thought that was
Yeah, yeah.
really poignant. And then, but yeah, so I was in a career transition. I had been working in the same career for, uh, you know, long time. Still in it. But at that point, I was like, I just needed to take a break. It was 2014, and I decided to cycle. I was going to take a bike trip and bicycle from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did too. I went from I started
Man.
in. Yeah, I didn't make it all the way, so that's a whole other story. But um, long story short, I did 29 Palms in Joshua Tree, which was the center that I went to, and I sat for 10 days, and
That's not your
then
first sit?
I'm sorry,
Was that your first sit? 29
that was
pounds?
my first set. That was my
Okay,
first
nice.
set. Yeah, I found out about it through just like when I was in California. A lot of it was known. I was living in Berkeley, and people were like, "Oh yeah, there's this meditation thing." I was talking about various things I wanted to do, um, including that cycle trip, and people were like, "Hey man, why don't you go check that out too?" So I basically got a ride to 29 Palms, sat for 10, served for 3 on my first sit. I just went straight through
Wow.
for 2 weeks, and then started that road trip. And that's how I started. And then again, had a long gap, really long gap. And then, but I still practiced, right? Like, even though it was like years of gap, I, sat again. And I started meditating when I was like maybe 10. I had read something and just decided to try it as a kid. And so I've always kind of had that interest in it. And, and then, as you know, I served for 9 months at a center, constantly serving and working at the center. So I'm kind of had my monk year, and now I'm just
Yeah, incredible.
back in the life. Yeah, yeah, that's how I got into it, and yeah, here I am, day
Yeah.
to day. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't stop.
doesn't stop, man. Doesn't stop. And then yeah, but then I met you, my brother in the practice, and we're forever talking over this Dhamma, over this practice. So yeah,
It's the
man.
service team right here. Yeah,
It's the service, right, right. We were both serving in the kitchen. You were the kitchen manager, I believe, Mr. Kitchen Manager.
probably.
Probably. That's right. Yeah, yeah. That's how I got started.
Yeah,
So
it feels like
like yeah. So the courses are 10 days, right? So what is a 10 day like? You wanna kind of break that
yeah.
down?
I'll start with that. You go there, and I mean, I didn't know anybody who actually went before, and the only thing I got is stuff from the internet, like, I mean, good and not good things, obviously, just like anybody's experience can be.
Yeah,
So, but when I decided to go, it's I was really, the most important thing for me was I was very set on doing it as best as I can, because meaning I would try to do my best to follow everything that they're telling me to do that's good for me, because they have laid out this program in my mind. It's like a program. And if I don't follow it as best as I can, then how will I really get what they're trying to offer me, right? Like, if I say,
yeah,
oh, no, I'm not going to do these things because I don't want to, I don't think it's good for me, whatever, all the reasons, then how do I know if it really is or isn't good for me, right? Let's say. So I kind
mhm,
of had this big moment of surrender, of like, you know what? And maybe because I became more vulnerable and everything else. So I was learning more about, letting go of the things that I thought were real, kind of thing, or to me at least, like this limiting box of beliefs. So, when I went in, it was, I felt I was going in like a clean slate, as best as I could, obviously. And so I followed all the rules, and almost, of course, we read things like, don't exercise. And what does exercise actually mean? So it could be even more strict than you imagine it, because you hear some and this is how you understand it. So yeah, now as I've gone more, it's changed. But obviously, my first Sunday was very strict, in my opinion, to myself, just because I was trying to do this thing the right way, like, and that's another thing, right? Like, what is the right way? But
so
anyway,
it wasn't that the
yeah, yeah.
course was strict; it's that you were being strict with yourself.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I was reading too much into it, right? But I had a really
Yeah.
great course. It really helped me, and I learned. I mean, obviously, like, one of my almost ways of rationalizing of going was like, hey, if I don't get anything out of this, at least I'll, one, become healthier physically, because I'll be eating vegetarian food, and I've actually never eaten vegetarian food probably for longer than 2 days. So for me, 10 days of vegetarian was like a big deal, and became like this more idea of like, I'm gonna be at least physically healthier if
Right.
I don't get anything mental out of it. And it was just like a reason for me to go that makes it a little easier, because of course it's all unknown. I don't know what's gonna happen, and I didn't really, I mean, I read a bunch of stuff online, so it was very much like, what, all this stuff is happening, these people telling me all these things. I don't know if they're true, but I know if I eat healthy, I know if I, sleep every day. Literally, I'm like, I'm going to be healthy after 10 days. And for me, that was
Yeah.
like a big deal.
All right.
What about you, man? Like, mine was kind of simple in that sense.
No, I think I mean, the food is obviously the best part, right? The food is like
Yeah.
amazing. Not the best part, but it's up there. It's you know, it's just really good. Vegetarian food, sliced up, served up, two big
I
meals.
mean,
Oh man, I used
it's
to
good
love
for
it.
you if you like
That's the part I miss the
vegetarian.
most. Huh?
It's good if you like vegetarian. I also know people who are not vegetarians at all. And for them, it could be challenging.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I'm not a vegetarian, but at the same time, like the food, it's you gotta admit,
It's
man, it's the
good.
seasoning, man, and the prep that goes into it. It's really good. It's really good.
I mean, what they say all the time, the love comes from the kitchen. So you can
Right.
definitely feel that vibe, especially all the serve. I mean, this, if you think about it, everybody's putting in their time, out of their own love for themselves, but also for all the people who are actually there at the course, whether they're sitting or serving. It's all going into this food, this love and harmony, right? And like, we talk about this all the time, the kitchen runs on harmony. And that's something very interesting because, again, that's part of the practice. You're practicing to be equanimous, right? So you can start, and I'll chime in on this just one real quick. Like the biggest thing for me as a server, like that I'm learning, is that when you're serving with other people who are also practicing, it actually creates this very conducive environment to learn more about yourself in the sense of how you react, or if you don't react, and because they understand. Like, I'm hoping that other people do understand that things come and go and things happen, but as we practice, we can, as we all practice together, we can have these moments of, like, I don't know, the space of, like, it's okay to make a mistake, or it's okay that this happened. There's no right or wrong in that moment. It's just like we get to observe it a little bit more, because also we meditate 3 times a day when we're serving. So it does help, for us to be more calm and more reflective on what's going on within us. So there's this beautiful mesh of serving there that allows you, at least allows me, to see things a little more clearly, I guess I would say.
Yeah, because you're definitely one of the most like consistent servers that I've ever seen, right? You come a couple times a year, you're kitchen manager, you're one of the people who really, like, I would say, helps keep, not, I mean, obviously it's a volunteer organization. It takes a lot of people to keep these centers running, but I think you're one of the people who definitely, like, I want to say the glue. I want to say you're one of the people who is the glue, but I think it's the attitude that you bring that a lot of servers share. It's that attitude that causes that cohesion. That's the attitude that you bring that a lot of people hold at the center, that helps it keep it going and running. As a, again, as a volunteer organization. So you touched on, like, harmony and that things pass, like we do have this, like, impermanence idea, right? That nothing lasts forever. Everything's kind of moment to moment. So how do you think that and as kitchen, as a person who's managed these volunteer groups, how does that impermanence and harmony, like, how would you go about building that and holding that in yourself, as you, because we do serve so that our practice becomes better. So how does that, like, touching on those ideas, service, harmony, impermanence, how does that build up your practice and your character as a person? Like, how does that all fit together?
Well, from my understanding is we're supposed to practice all the time. So in the sense of observing the sensations that are happening and being equanimous, as we can.
So that's good and bad, right? So don't indulge in the happy and don't indulge in the bad, right? Just kind of stay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong being happy or sad. Like, again, like I was saying, it's just something that's happening, right? Like, you don't need to push it. You actually shouldn't push it away. You should observe it, and I call it embracing, and some people call it, I don't know. So I guess some people would use the word letting go too, but for me, it's not really letting go. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, I know I hear it all the time, but for me, it's definitely not letting go, and it sounds pretty strong, but it's just part of the moment. It's part of you right now, right? Like, I'm feeling this thing, and yeah, it's almost simple, but not simple. It's one of those things. Like, it's yeah. Impermanence is just one of the law. I mean, it's just the law of nature, meaning it's just the universal law saying that nothing is forever, right? So that practice of understanding that, just like I always feel about it like this, like love. What did it mean to us when we're in high school versus when we're in college versus when we're an adult? Like, it's always changing, this understanding of love, and same thing with this word impermanence, right? Like, it constantly keeps growing, maybe, and you keep seeing things even deeper than, oh, impermanence simply means everything that comes also goes. Like, it can be much more deeper, just like, yeah, any word that you can think of, right? So, yeah, I actually don't know if I answered that question at all, but
no, but
yeah.
I touched, there's something else you said that I thought was really interesting was that impermanence is a universal kind of law, right? So like one of the things that I found attractive about the practice is that it's a little more like scientific in ways, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
and impermanence being one of those things, right? Like it's, you know, all systems tend towards entropy, right? Like it's just,
No,
you
yeah.
know, it's going to all you know, not without being too like negative or nihilistic, it's all going to kind of tend towards it's all gonna end, right?
It's
So
all
I thought
gonna
that was
balance out. That's what it
about,
is.
I'm sorry.
It's all gonna balance out. That's all it is.
Oh, yes.
Everything that comes will go. So it's just balancing itself out in a sense, but maybe not. I don't know. Just throwing it out
No, I
there.
like that. I like that. Keep it balanced. Yeah. So okay. What I was asking though was about like, okay, so in the practice, you're like you said, we're trying to maintain this day-to-day practice, and there's, you know, you're in the kitchen, you're serving, and there's this universal law of impermanence, right? Like nothing, at least on this, you know, level of existence, is permanent, right? So um when somebody, you know, cuts the vegetables in a way that you don't like, or you know, or you know, something that is triggering when you're in the kitchen, and or even as from a managerial standpoint too, uh two people are being triggered, or triggering one another, or you know, like how does, like that's what I'm trying to get is like, how does the practice enter into these situations where
Yeah.
you're going to experience these feelings of positively or negative? Like that's what I'm trying to.
Yeah. So for me, the the thing that I come back to is, why am I here? So when I'm serving,
Mm.
for example, and that's why I try to communicate to anybody who is serving the course is, know why you're here, right? Like, because most of the time, if people know why they are, what's their purpose in serving, the other stuff goes away, right? Like, because it's getting in the way of you serving, right? Like, you know, so, and
Change the
really, I
purpose.
don't want to just say serving the students, serving yourself, because as a server, you're actually responsible for yourself first. So you need to know you have the harmony. You need to know if you're overworking yourself. And of course, the manager or whatever other people there can help you and you know, ask you the question or offer you help, whatnot. But in the end, you got to make that decision, because we give you the opportunity to serve, and also the opportunity when you need the break. Like, you know, like we give people half day off or full day off, or who knows, like, you know, we're always, I think all the kitchen managers who have managed there, it's in the book too, you know, like we have off time, or when people come, you know, some people only have to come in the morning for breakfast. I mean, everything is very, I don't want to say optional, but we're not here to force anybody to do anything, right? Like you're here for your own benefit to serve. And I think when people really understand what that means, it becomes simple and easy, in the sense like effortless, because you know why you're here. And that's with anything. I think that's what in general life, once you really know why you're living instead of
Mm.
existing, then life becomes more obvious in a way. And that makes it effortless, I guess. Or
No,
more
that's
joyful,
great.
for you.
Yeah, that's great. Like you reminded me of one of the sayings, the what they say, selfless service is a selfish act, right? Because as you're serving, you're developing these different qualities of patience, of, you know, harmony, these things that you've touched on. Like I think that is what it means, and I think that that's what this podcast is. What we're trying to do here, right, is help people understand that um, your purpose, you know, like you touched on this as well, like why am I here, what is the purpose of me doing this thing, right? And staying aligned with your purpose is, and service is always a way of defining one's purpose, right? Like I'm here to serve my family, or I'm here to serve my country, or I'm here to serve, you know, this body of meditators, or I'm here to serve, you know, whomever. I'm here to serve myself. I'm here to serve my own peace and harmony. Um,
Mhm.
but it is still service, right? It's which is an act of do I want to say submission? No, it's not. It's an act of um, selflessness, right? But it's still selfish because by letting go of my ego, I'm able to gain these other qualities, right? And I think that
Right.
that's what this is about, right? What this practice is about in ways. Like, would you
Right.
agree with that? Do you think that that's
I would say in this way, I guess, like it's like self-love, right? Like how can you
mm,
really understand love until you love yourself? And the same, that's how it goes in, I mean, that is the practice for me in the big picture. Like if I don't do this for myself, how can I actually understand other people and be of service to them if I can't serve myself at the highest level, right? And
mm,
I mean, in the end, it's love, like if I don't really understand being gentle with myself, right? How can I really be gentle with other people? If I can't see these things happening to me within me, then how can I, let's say, imagine or assume how this other person's even feeling, right? So for me, it's that's why I think so one of the things that happened to me, at least that I went through that really helped me, and it's an ongoing thing, is being less hard on myself or being gentle with myself. But of course, I would say hard on myself before. Now I say gentle with myself. Who knows? This is just one little example, like the words I use even.
right,
But I used to be very, very hard on myself and very like the worst critic. Like pretty normal. I think standard for most people. Um, and it didn't help me. Like if I would do something that I didn't feel good about for myself, I would beat myself up, and then it would take me forever to come back up, right? So in the sense of, let's say, meditation practice, like if I skipped one or I felt like I had to sit more or whatever, I would beat myself up, and then maybe I wouldn't even sit anymore, or
right,
I wouldn't be able to sit because I'm so upset, and it's weird. It's like a little kid. But now I'm more gentle with myself, and that has actually helped me meditate much more, just because of this, understanding of giving myself this grace, as we talked about earlier. This space. It's okay. You can complain, whine, and then you can go meditate again, or go do your thing that you were supposed to do or you wanted to do. Yeah.
right. That word grace has been coming up a lot this week for me. So, but just to dive into that a little bit more. So you're saying like, okay, you were supposed to, I don't know, you know, I'm gonna use an exercise example because there's other things like let's say you're supposed to do go to the gym this week, right? And you missed a session, right? How are you gentle with yourself? Like what is that process like? Do you just like, oh, it's okay, whatever, or like how does
Yeah.
it,
This is
you
a
know?
funny one. I mean, this is something I'm still exploring, but I would call
Okay,
it discernment. Like, of course, there's a part of you that should be gentle with yourself, but imagine if you did this all the time, that you would never go to the gym. Like, so there's
right.
also and this is part of becoming your own master. I would say, like,
Mm.
you still holding the stick, you still holding the whip too. You're not just coddling yourself. Like you still got oh yeah, if I don't go, like this could not be good for me. I should, go. I should do it. I should help myself to get there. So there's different layers of this whole, and this is going to be different for everybody. And who knows what's actually good or not in that moment, possibly. And in the end, I think it doesn't matter as much as we may make it out to be, like this right and wrong thing. And again, you can try it out. If you keep doing this coddling and it's not helping you, now you're getting unhealthy or you're not feeling as good, then you will know, and then you can maybe be a little bit more maybe add some way to be more accountable, like have a gym partner. You can add something to this to help you and see what happens, right? And
Right,
so it's really your own, everybody has their own journey, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like it's actually the development of becoming your own true master. And that's also being authentic, right? When you are actually your master, you're being authentic with yourself. You're not just pleasing this person that doesn't want to go to the gym and is tired, or maybe, whatever. Like you have this balance. And it sounds, again, when you go beyond of right and wrong, there's also part of this self-love in that. And I might not even be explaining it very well, but it's going to be, I'm sure, different for everybody in that sense of what is good for me at this time or in the future, etc. But
Okay.
it's a
No,
difficult
but
one. I don't even.
yeah, I trust me, man. I struggle with going to the gym every day too, or every, so
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to put that one out there. Because I do think like just with that specific example, like there's times when you're like, well, okay, so all of it is habits, right? It's like developing these habits, right? Developing a habit of practicing, like that self-mastery that you talked about is really about not controlling and forcing and like being like a real hard disciplinarian with oneself, right? It's about like, this is who I would like to be. I'm going to add this to my stack of habits, and that's just me. I really like the habit stacking, atomic habits kind of thought process. There's other things that work for other people, but for sure, for my personal growth, it's been about taking the time to reflect on what I did or haven't done, and still, like you said, be gentle. Like, don't beat myself up about it. Like, oh man, I missed a session. Man, I'm a terrible person. Or be so what is it, avoidant, where you're just like, I'm not even gonna think about that I didn't go, and whatever, not like,
Oh yeah,
it's like I
ignore it.
didn't. Yeah, it's like it didn't go. Gotta get. Would like to get better at this. What do I do? What happened? What worked? What didn't work? Really evaluating and sitting with it, right? To work on the next. To work on that improvement.
Yeah, the habit thing is an interesting thing because theoretically we're trying to live without habits, right? We're trying to be in the moment. So
Mm.
I think there's a step to everything. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do any of this, right? Like this practice of being authentic. And, we all have our tools to help us to get what we want to get. Like, maybe people want to be more strict with themselves to meditate daily, or to go to the gym or to learn a new language, whatever. Everybody, we create our own structure and schedule to gain this intention that we have, right? But I think it's also important to remember that, you're not just doing something mechanically now, right? Like, oh, I do this because I'm supposed to do it. It's on my calendar. I'm just going to go do it, right? Then it isn't mindful in the sense anymore. And it becomes more of a robotic thing, right? Like, so it's something I come back to because I've done this many times, including with meditation. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a complicated one, I think, for me at least.
No,
So
it definitely is. But let me give you a hypothetical, right? So a person has become fully, without ego, right? They no longer have an I, right? There is no I anymore, and they're just completely egoless, right? And they've been practicing, they're perfect in their practice, have been whatever for and completely egoless. So because you had mentioned like what we're trying to do is be without habits or be without these things, right? So, or this conditioning, to be without conditioning is maybe a better way to say it.
yeah.
So you've reached this state of perfect unconditioned state, right? And then what do you do next, right? You want to build, or you make a decision, right? You make a decision like, I'm going to something, right? I'm going to be whatever, right? So then how do you become that next version, right? If you reach this perfect state and then you want to become something, add on conditioning, I guess. How would you about that?
When you become yourself, you don't need anything else. You don't need to try to become anything else. You already are in the present moment, and you can see things without these things of, oh, I should maybe do more of this, or I can be this, or is this right or wrong? All things, I think all those things go away in a sense, and it allows you just to see things clearly, I guess would be the word. But you're just being yourself, and it doesn't take any effort at all, like zero
Mm.
effort, I guess, because you're not fighting this thing of being, oh no, I don't want to be this, I want to be this strong, like there is
Mm.
some kind of, I don't want to say friction, but there is energy involved, or this thing involved within you that doesn't let you be, let's say, at peace or something, right? Because if you
Okay.
could just be, then let's say you be at peace, because you're not fighting within you of trying to figure out if I should do this, or if I should make more money, or if I am comfortable enough right now in my bed, like all these little things that could affect, oh, I'm still a little hungry, I want to eat one more bite, like I don't know, like, so it's like you're just okay with being, because you don't need anything else, I guess, in this sense. I don't know, but if I understand just what to be, it's like being super intuitive, or being intuitive, right, all the time. And if you're
Mm.
intuitive all the time, you already know what's going to happen next, because you can see things so clearly. So theoretically, yeah, you would just know everything, like, because you don't have anything working against you anymore.
Like that. Just be.
Yeah, just be, like, sounds so simple, but yeah, I mean, we could go, this is a whole nother
Yeah.
episode for sure.
Just
For
be.
sure.
Yeah. It reminds me of the saying, that's saying simplicity in the hands of the master, right? Like you have like,
Mhm.
like a master boxer, right? Or a master painter. They make it look so simple, right? It's a simple stroke of the brush that and
Yeah.
this work of art takes place. And I think that is because of that just being and flow state or whatever you might want to call it. I like that. That's nice.
I noticed
Just
this a little bit about in playing. So I started playing a little bit of golf, and I noticed it could be. I mean, for me at least, it was very very meditative experience. And I was just at the driving range, but like every
mm,
ball I would hit, I would just. And here I could use the word "let go," I guess, but I would just let go of all this stuff that's like, you can hit this, you can't hit this, like all this stuff that's going on, like, oh, relax more, oh, make sure you do this. So there was this thing in the back of my head, or whatever you want to call it, the mind was thinking about all these things, and kind of like when I let those thoughts go, or I guess when I was just being more present with myself in this golf ball and this club, everything in my hand, I would just hit
mm,
it, you know. And I know I only noticed this because um I would have my friend film me, and usually if someone's filming me, at least in general, I'll probably screw up more, because now, oh, someone's watching me, I gotta do better. Like I get this vibe, right? But I still did the
yeah,
same, and I was still hitting the ball, and it was kind of weird because I hit literally every ball that that bucket I hit. Like I hit every ball, and this is like my second time actually getting a lesson from a friend. So it was very weird, and they're very surprised, and I was surprised. But it became this weird meditative thing where I was just like, I'm just gonna hit this ball. Like I'm not gonna think about it too much. Like it was weird, but yeah.
yeah,
So that's one time I felt this thing about, yeah, being in this moment, just being with this thing, and doing it.
great.
But yeah,
That's great. Yeah, I feel like a lot of like different sports and disciplines bring that out of people, right? Musicians talk about that, and
yeah.
yeah, that's great. Just
I hear
be.
a lot of people are meditating now before their games and stuff. Like it's like a additional practice that people have put in besides stretching and stuff, right? Like, so it's very
Mm,
interesting. I mean, meditation or mindfulness is definitely something that is growing, and with the mental health and everything else, like it's they're adding it to schools now. I mean, this is definitely, I don't want to say it's going to be the thing, but it's definitely something that's starting to come up to be important for other people, which is great, because it really helped me, you know, deal with my, I don't want to say inner demons, but deal with my imperfect self pretty much. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I hear you, man. That's good. That's interesting that you say that. That how it's how the practice is growing, even in different ways. I know, like they're using it in like MBT, mindfulness based therapy, is a thing that's coming out. A lot of people are doing that now, especially like they're using it with veterans to help them. And um, there's a lot of I'm happy to see the practice going. I feel like what we do is very much about making that practice very internal and learning the practice deeply, right? Because it's one thing to, oh, before this game I'm going to sit for 15 minutes. It's another thing to be like, I sit regularly, and that helps me build a lifestyle and a home and things like that. Like, I think that's very different levels, right? And there's nothing wrong with any level as long as you are getting it in. And all those studies about 5 minutes of meditation a day, 15 minutes of meditation a day will increase this and this and that, and do this and this and that for you. So I think it's nice to hear people doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a practice of self-love, just like if you go to the gym, a couple of times a week. I mean, all these things that you do for yourself is a way you're practicing to love yourself more. So, of course, the more I think you start developing this compassion for yourself, you're going to become a better version of yourself because you're going to take things less so serious. And maybe when you get angry, you get angry a little less because you love yourself. You're not feeling good when you're getting angry. I mean, who knows, right? Or maybe you're more forgiving now because you know that it's not as simple as everything you would hope it to be, right? Like, so it's a good journey, and I think everybody's gonna go through it their own way. And like you said, we practice a specific thing. But one thing I do want to say, this 10-day course, this retreat is specifically a retreat. It's designed this way to give you this experience, and it's not necessarily something you need to do like every day, right? Like, and this is why I've been told, when I meditate at home, I don't need to be so strict on myself in the sense of like sitting without moving, right? So there is this gentleness that still comes in that, I think we should foster, that it is important not to be so strict in that sense, and give us that grace to, to meditate, to do it. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, like I see it, especially in the gym too. I'll be there, and people will be like, "Man, I didn't get my 20 reps in, right? Or I didn't get this in, or I didn't do this, or I didn't sit the whole 15 minutes." That people will say that, but I think, speaking to what you talk about with gentleness and grace, giving yourself that gentleness, give yourself credit. People need to give themselves credit for what they did do, right? You did go to the gym today, right? Even if you were there for 5 minutes and you left, you went, and that is half the battle. And then, you brought your cushion out, you sat down, you were sat down for 10 minutes. That's progress. Tomorrow, do it again, and do it again. And maybe next tomorrow it'll be 15 minutes, or whatever it is. I think that is one way in which we can be gentle with ourselves, is to give ourselves credit for what we do, as opposed to focusing on what we didn't do. And that's something I've been working on myself as well.
I think you hit that spot on, like showing up is the most important part. And of course, it's good to, do the practice, whatever it is, but even if you meditated for 5 minutes the first couple weeks, then 10 minutes the next couple weeks, and then 15. But what if you went back to 5 minutes? It's okay. Like, this is the thing about everything's always changing. You observe yourself. Same thing with the gym, your body's tired, maybe. And it doesn't matter what the reason is, but, like you said, give yourself that grace, and things are always changing. And guess what? I'm getting older. Maybe I'm not supposed to be lifting that 20 rep anymore, because my body doesn't feel comfortable. So, or maybe I should lower the weight. I mean, who knows? And this is where also our own discernment comes in, right? Like, you have to be your master and figure it out. You can't just blame yourself like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, I can't. Like, you can really figure that out, because next time you go, maybe you can do it again. So maybe it was just a day that you didn't feel it. So I think everything, like you said, is a little bit more grace in the sense of, oh, you showed up, like be happy with that. But even that becomes rationalizing a little bit, which is again the defense
Right.
mechanism of coping or feeling good about, oh, I still showed up. I could go home for now after 5 minutes. Like it could become, I mean, this is part of becoming your master. It ain't easy, like I have these moments I do that, so I know, but then you got to have the one has the whip and like, hey, you do another 5 minutes, see what happens. And this is where
Right.
I come in, where when I start feeling this thing, I might just give it another couple minutes and see what happens, and you could feel differently by then. So yeah, this, I guess this could be a whole other topic for sure.
Definitely, definitely,
But,
definitely.
yeah,
You
like
know what I was
this is
thinking? Definitely
tough
good.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking about how like I don't know, people have their opinions about David Goggins, and I'm not gonna speak either way about him. But
yeah,
here was one thing where he was saying like he had a moment where things were getting hard. He was like, "Oh, this is gonna be terrible," and then he leaned into doing it more, right? And I think that there's an element of that too, where it's like, you go there, like you were saying, you got to have the whip too. You go there and you're like, man, I'm here and I'm tired, and like then observing that sensation, like, all right, I am feeling tired. This is tiredness. This is tiredness right here. But when this tiredness comes up, that's when it's time to kick in. Or this is a negative, whatever negative. This is me running to run away, or this is me wanting to give up. This is the moment when it's time to do the most work, right? It's like, I think the awareness that comes from the practice allows you to, instead of just being that negative emotion, you're able to say, this is that negativity, and I'm going to use that energy to take that next step forward. That's something that I really, think the practice helps with a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting concept, like this thing of using this other thing to help you, and again, that's just, I don't want to say it's a way to cope, but it's a way to make you feel better about it, to do it, right? Or imagine that now because of this. And people use contrast a lot to, and again, I don't want to say for everybody, but I've used contrast to be like, oh, if this is really uncomfortable, it must be good for me, like, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Like it could also be not good for me right now, and I should back off, and that's happened for sure. And I've had injuries because of that, physically at least, and probably mentally, I don't know. But and I want to think about it. But yeah, like this I had this little talk about this contrast. Like we think we can learn, and again, this could be another podcast show. But we think when there's that big contrast or this big uncomfortableness, that's an opportunity to learn, let's say, a lot, right? But maybe you can learn a lot from something very insignificant too. Like you could barely realize it, but when you realize it, you're like, wow, I totally didn't understand this thing. Now I saw this little act of kindness even, or something, and it could change the way you see things or how you feel about things. So contrast, I mean, this is again, this duality of us using to make something bigger or better or whatever, worse or whatever, right? And there's no right or wrong, in the end, it's going to serve you in that moment, maybe, right? But to really understand that there's more than that one way is, I think, also important. And whether it's now or later, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, like, I think for us and the listeners, it'd be nice just to know that, there is many ways to do it, and there's no wrong way to do it, but be aware that there is many ways to do it, right? Be open to it. Yeah, because then again, we become conditioned. We're like, oh, if it's really uncomfortable, then it's really helpful. Let me sit like this, or whatever. Like, but no, you can literally sit super comfortably, and you can gain, let's say, a lot out of it too. So
Blew my knee out one time trying to sit uncomfortably just because I was. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. I know since we've meditated quite a few, hours. I'm sure we both tried a lot of stupid things just to see, because we are our own master. We are our own master. I mean, someone could tell you, "Oh, dude, like this is the best way." You're like, "Nah, that's not the best way. Like, let me try it like 100 other ways first before I know that this is the best way, whatever it is, right?" Because in
Right.
reality, we all have different bodies. Like sitting on a chair might be the best way for you. Like, don't fight it, you know. Or especially as I get older, I know one day I'm not gonna. It's possible I'm not gonna sit on the floor anymore. You know, like this is just
Yeah.
the reality that's going to present itself possibly. So, I'm going to embrace it and be gentle with myself, but I continue to meditate. That's the difference, right? So, and this is just my assumption, all of it, because I don't know. But yeah, this practice is, yeah, it's a funny one. It's a real funny one. So the
The
service
journey,
table,
not the destination.
yeah, and the service table has been able for me to be friends with you, for example, and other people that have really served me at the highest level. Because if I
Mm.
never talked about these things, and maybe I would have understood it in some way, through meditation or things happening in my life, but to have people in this, I don't want to say the same exact wavelength, but we're in the same energy vibe, whatever. Like we're here to help ourselves and help others, right? Like something changes, because the conversation we have are really wholesome, and we're not trying to be right or wrong. We're just here to try to learn what the universal truth is. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's
beautiful. I mean,
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. So the service table, and as we wrap up here, the service tables were really just about that community, that body of meditators, like you said, people serving one another in this practice and making it happen. What else do you think that service table, like why the service table? What is it about that table that makes this podcast come to life and makes this practice come to life?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things, you meet all kinds of different people at the service table, and people I would never meet. I probably would never meet, unless I was in a different community or in a different country, or like you learn a lot about yourself by learning about other people too. Like that's how it is for me, at least, and especially about the food. There can be different ranges of food, different people cooking, different way of doing things, like cutting vegetables even. I mean, you can learn so much. It could be somebody who's a professional, chef showing you how to do things. And then there's somebody like me who's like, let's see what this thing says, or let's look at the picture, see how it looks like. Like I don't know. Like then there's safety, but everything, there's so many levels. And this is a beautiful thing. You see this mix of culture and experience and of people that are all looking to understand themselves a little bit more, and I think that's the beautiful part. And it's, you see the self-love, for everybody has this thing. They're like, yeah, I know I'm not perfect. I'm here to serve and give, my time and my love to this center, this experience for other people. And I know I'm not perfect, but I'm still gonna do my best, and that's something very humbling and sweet in this sense. And if you meet people like that, they're not going to be, I mean we all have egos, so it comes out. But now you're in an environment where it's okay, in the sense of, oh, that was just your ego coming out. Cool. That's not who you are. It's just your ego, so it's like a little bit of different level a high level of forgiveness, in the sense, and acceptance. It's not like you're supposed to do this job perfectly and you're not doing it, you're fired. No, it's just like, hey,
Right.
you need help with that? How can we help you? It's very gentle and kind, as best as we can. And I think it shows. And that's what people keep coming back to serve, and learning how to be maybe in their daily life at home, that they can, an example of who they could be if they want to be, or if they practice, let's say.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. Yeah, it's
No, I think you
what's
touched on
great.
a lot there. There's a certain amount of joy in service, in helping other people to be their best selves as well, right? There's a
Right.
self-love there because you are being your best self when you can help others to be their best selves. And I think that, yeah, I think that there's a beautiful thing that in there, and the gentleness and a harshness. Like you said, there's many roads. Like sometimes some people are very self-discipline, and some people are very lackadaisical, like laissez-faire. You know, it just this is very,
Yeah,
it's all
yeah.
spectrum. You know, but I think that taking care of yourself is super important, and that's what we do get from this service table. Is there anything you want to leave the people with as we wrap up here today? Is there anything like that you would want to just point that you would want to get them to understand from
I
our
mean, we got
conversation?
so many points through. I would just say, you know, in the end of the day, you know, when all said is done, the only thing we have is this present moment, right? Like to be, because as we know, the future is unknown, the past is already over with. So by knowing that the present moment is the only thing actually real, like that he can grasp for a split second, right? You know, it's when, yeah, this is a tough one, but the practice of serving really helped me develop to see this moment more clearly, because it is a busy environment. You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're running around, maybe you're trying to meet this thing at a certain time. But suddenly, when you start noticing these little present moments while you're doing all this stuff, because you're in an environment that's conducive for it, something happens, at least for me, like something, I don't want to use the word magical, but I've had these beautiful insights of like, wow, I'm cutting a vegetable right now. Like the simplest thing. And that's what I mean. The contrast for me is just like I was just there for a second of cutting this vegetable, and that's all I was doing. And I know I was cutting this vegetable. It sounds weird to say. I don't even know if it makes sense, but something very simple. And that gave me some other level of knowing that this present moment is important to me, you know, even though I'm just cutting a vegetable, or, you know, I'm, yeah, sweeping the floor. I mean, the simplest things. And maybe
Yeah.
they're good that they're simple, because otherwise maybe I couldn't see it. But yeah, yeah, like for sure. It's that's what and I always offer people the opportunity to serve, because for me, I don't want to say it's better or worse than sitting a 10-day, because everything has its purpose, right? But for me, serving has really helped me to be more compassionate with myself. And I think that in the end has helped me the most personally in the big picture, even sitting 10-day or not, you know, like learning about self-love for me has been a great resource. And I was able to do it much better in an environment like serving at a center versus at home triggered by 100 million things, you know.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
my take on it. But what about you? Like, what's the thing that you want to share before we end this
Yeah,
episode?
I think that was great, man. I think stay present. You know, I think that's a great way to wrap it up. We could just, you know, stay present, be gentle with yourselves, just touching on what we talked about. You know, I think that's great. Yeah, it's a great way to end it.
Let's give everybody the opportunity to be present for a few minutes together. If that's something you think we should do, we can just meditate for a few minutes. Or is it too soon? You want to say?
Yeah. No, I was gonna say like we can like have people you know, just reach out to us, right? They can comment if they have any questions or comments. We'll be able to sit with them at some point. You know, they'll be able to do that. And yeah, I think uh, getting in touch through the podcast, liking, following, all that kind of stuff is good. So yeah, yeah, I'm Lloyd. This is Trung. Thank you guys for tuning in today. If you have any questions, like, again, feel free to link us in the bio, in the description, leave a comment. You know, we'll be in your feed every week, every Saturday. And it was good talking with you guys. See you at the table.
See you guys. All right, so I guess we didn't do the meditation yet.